Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. Donald Trump, elected as the 45th President of the United States, calls on America to bind the wounds of a divisive campaign and come together as one united people. Congratulations pour in from across the world for the President-elect. India and Japan signed landmark civil nuclear deal. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says historic step reflects commitment of both nations in the relationship. India and Japan also signed 12 other agreements. UK announces first ever easier visa regime for Indian business on Prime Minister May's visit to India. New system to come with speedy passage through British airports and access to European Union. And Andy Murray dethrones Novak Djokovic as the world #1 men's tennis player. Scott's elevation ensures he will be the top seed in the season-ending World Tour Finals in London in December. Let's begin with our top focus. Earlier this week, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton to win one of the most shocking US elections. The victory upset major predictions that gave Clinton various degrees of comfortable leads in their election day predictions. A reality television star, Trump was a political newbie who seemed to rewrite every rule in the election campaigning. Shortly after his victory, rival Democrat Hillary Clinton called Trump to congratulate him.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. Have to get together. To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. It's time.
The President-elect of the United States of America reaching out to the nation after winning a landmark election. The billionaire Republican candidate defeated a heavily favored Hillary Clinton to end 8 years of Democratic rule.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. She congratulated us, it's about us, on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign. I mean, she fought very hard.
The wealthy real estate tycoon and former reality TV host rode a wave of anger toward Washington insiders to win the race to the White House. His challenger, Clinton, banked on a gold-plated establishment resume that included stints as a First Lady, US Senator and Secretary of State. Trump comfortably took the battleground states where presidential elections are traditionally decided.
Ours was not a campaign, but rather an incredible and great movement made up of millions of hardworking men and women who love their country and want a better, brighter future for themselves and for their family.
Trump, appearing with his family before cheering supporters in a New York hotel ballroom, said it was time to heal the divisions caused by the campaign and find common ground.
We are going to fix our inner cities and rebuild our highways, bridges, tunnels, airports, schools, hospitals. We're going to rebuild our infrastructure, which will become, by the way, second to none. And we will put millions of our people to work as we rebuild it.
Spelling out his economic plans, Trump claimed he will double US economic growth and embark on a project of renewal.
We will embark upon a project of national growth and renewal. I will harness the creative talents of our people, and we will call upon the best and brightest to leverage their tremendous talent for the benefit of all. It's going to happen. We have a great economic plan. We will double our growth and have the strongest economy anywhere in the world. At the same time, we will get along with all other nations willing to get along with us. We will be.
Trump's win rested on the solid support among a core base of white, non-college educated workers with his promise to be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. Summing up the election verdict a short while before Trump's victory speech, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta, was telling supporters in New York to go home. He said, "We are not going to have anything more to say tonight." Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. Meanwhile, congratulations poured in from across the world as Donald Trump inched towards his election victory. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe congratulated Trump on his victory. China said it hoped for healthy and stable relations with the new US president-elect, while Germany warned against underestimating Trump's win.
Congratulatory messages poured in from across the world on Wednesday as Donald Trump inched towards his election victory. In his congratulatory telegram to Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed hope for mutual work in bringing US-Russia relations out of their critical condition.
Russia is ready and wants to restore full-fledged relations with the United States. I repeat that we understand this won't be an easy path, but we are ready to play our part in it.
Yes, I look forward to working with President-elect Trump. The American people have elected him as the next President of the United States. Britain and the United States share values of freedom, democracy and enterprise, and I look forward to building on the special relationship we have between our two countries to ensure the security and prosperity of our two nations in the future.
The United States is a very important partner for France. And what's at stake is peace, the fight against terrorism, the situation in the Middle East, economic relationship, and the preservation of the planet. On all these matters, I will without delay engage in a discussion with the new American administration.
Japan said it will look forward to work with future US President Donald Trump.
I hope to work with the next US President Trump on many global issues. I'm looking forward to working with him.
China said it hoped for healthy and stable relations with the new US president-elect, while Germany warned against underestimating Trump's win.
We look forward to working together with new US administration to push forward a consistent, healthy and stable China-US relations, which could be beneficial to the people of the two countries and the world. In my opinion, it is a good thing that the campaigning has finished. The way it was conducted has left deep wounds, which I may say in advance, will not be so easy to heal.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan hoped that Trump's victory would lead to positive steps for the Middle East and for basic rights and freedoms across the world.
I hope that this choice of the American people will lead to beneficial steps being taken for the world concerning basic rights and freedoms, democracy and developments in our region. On my and my people's behalf, I want to interpret this choice of the American people as good, and I wish them a successful future.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said a strong NATO was in the interest of the United States, while European Parliament President Martin Schulz too expressed hopes for a rational cooperation.
US leadership is as important as ever. Our alliance has brought together America's closest friends in times of peace and of conflict for almost 70 years. A strong NATO is good for the United States, and it is good for Europe.
It will not be easy because during the election campaign we heard some elements of protectionism, also some worrying words about women, about minorities. But my experience is also that election campaigns are different from the real politics during a term of a president, and so I hope that we will get back to a rational cooperation.
Hollywood celebrities, however, expressed shock over Trump's surprise win over Clinton. Many celebrities had openly backed Clinton, and they took to social media to share their despair. Trump, a former reality star who has hosted The Apprentice, swept Clinton in battleground states like Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this week to talk about this is Manoj Joshi, Senior Fellow, Observer Research Foundation. Thank you so much for joining me on the program. Let's talk about Trump's foreign policy. Now, he's been criticized during the course of the campaign because he's not been elaborate about his foreign policy. But whatever we know about his foreign policy thus far, it seems alarming.
Not really. Meaning, if you look at his foreign policy, what is he saying? He is saying that insofar, first of all, he has to get the message of his people who have elected him. That message is, please focus on the United States itself. You need to do things in the United States. We need to transform the United States. We need to have economic growth in the United States. The dividing line between the rich are getting richer, the poor poorer. You've got to do something. So in that, his principal focus was on two areas, trade and immigration. On the issue of trade, definitely, I think Mr. Trump will take up you will see a greater protectionist trend. I think the Trans-Pacific Partnership is dead. There's no hope for that. And all other trade agreements are not going to work.
NAFTA and the others.
But the point is, you see, WTO had already come to a grinding halt, meaning already you were seeing protectionism around the world in the past 4 or 5 years. So in terms of trade, I don't see anything. Now I think we have to clear the tables and start anew on that. Immigration, yes, immigration from poorer countries or poorer immigrants will be affected. But immigrants from, let's say, countries like India or China who are highly educated, they are not going to be directly affected. Then you have to, if you look at countries like Europe, if you look at Europe, Russia, Iran, India, Southeast Asia, I think, again, the message is do things which are very directly connected to the American interests. Everyone is free riding on the United States. They've got to pay for their security.
Yes.
And that's a message primarily to Europe, where the United States is the basically basic security provider. Most European nations, their defense budgets have reduced.
What about allies in the Far East, for instance, Japan and South Korea?
See, Japan is a country which is willing to do more. But there are some historic reasons in which Japan has not been doing so. And South Korea also, I think, is willing to do more. The problem with South Korea and Japan is that they are much weaker than their putative rival, which is China. Okay? So the United States is definitely wanted there, definitely needed there. The Japanese will be more than happy to pay what is required, and they are paying, in fact. Many of them, they are paying quite a bit. The issue is things like South China Sea. Will the United States be more active or less active? I think, in many areas, what happens is a lot will depend on the team Mr. Trump selects. As of now, we know nothing about it.
Yes.
And who's the Secretary of State, who's the Assistant Secretary for South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia. Because I think Mr. Trump will be the kind of president where he'll lay out the broad contours of policy, and he will allow his cabinet to basically pursue those areas. And so a lot of it will be visible there. But at the end of the day, countries have interests, okay, and they pursue those interests regardless of who is leading them. And so it is with the United States. They have certain interests. I think those interests are fairly clear. And whether it is Trump or whether it's Clinton or whether it's Obama, all of them would follow that. Now, the thing is that Mr. Obama was seen as a bit restrained, but he came after 2 wars that the United States spent trillions of dollars.
Indeed. Talking about wars, what's going to happen in Syria? What's going to happen in West Asia?
I have a feeling that Mr. Trump will not get too much into Syria. After all, what's in it for the United States? Already, both Libya and Syria were really pushed for by the Europeans. It is the British and the French which started this whole Libyan thing, and the Americans reluctantly went along. Same thing happened with Syria. So I have a feeling that the United States is not going to, be too aggressive on that. They'll kind of make a deal with the Russians, and the Russians will also be happy with that.
Indeed. So Trump has also, right through his campaign trails, spoken about how he wants to eliminate the threat of ISIL or ISIS. And he's also spoken about Pakistan and how he wants to stem terrorism emanating out of Pakistan. So that in turn is definitely going to help India, isn't it?
I'm not so sure again, because my point is that ISIL, in a few months, ISIL will no longer have a geographical location. That's going to vanish. Mosul is going to be captured. Raqqa is going to be captured. So ISIL and ISIS will become kind of global franchises like the Al-Qaeda. So yes, definitely the Americans will pursue them wherever they are. With regard to Pakistan, I'd like to say that I think India has grand illusions that the Americans will join us in this crusade against Pakistan. The fact of the matter is that the Americans have vital interest in Pakistan, and associated with that, Afghanistan. And one of the most vital interests is that Pakistan is a nuclear-armed nation.
Indeed.
The United States is not going to simply walk away, and leave Pakistan in this chaotic condition, because the one thing that can affect the United States is nuclear weapons that get out of Pakistan's control and are used by terrorists.
Indeed. Mr. Manoj Joshi, we'll have to leave to that. Thank you so much for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, on that note, of course, it's time for a short break, but it's still to come. India and Japan signed landmark civil nuclear deal. Agreement comes after tough negotiations for over 6 years. Both nations also signed 12 other agreements. That and much more still to come. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, the long-pending civil nuclear deal between India and Japan was signed on Friday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe witnessed the signing of the crucial deal, negotiations for which had been going on for 6 years. The two countries had reached a broad agreement last December during Abe's visit to India, but Japan saw strong political resistance to the deal, especially after the 2011 disaster at the Fukushima nuclear power plant.
India and Japan signed the landmark civil nuclear deal on Friday after summit-level talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his counterpart Shinzo Abe. The deal that comes after 6 years of negotiations will allow Japan to export nuclear technology to India, making it the first non-NPT signatory to have such a deal with Tokyo. 12 other pacts were also signed between both countries in areas of trade and investment, skill and infrastructure development, agriculture and food industries, marine and earth sciences, and cooperation in sports and cultural exchange.
Today's signing of the agreement for cooperation in peaceful use of nuclear energy marks a historic step in our engagement to build a clean energy partnership. Our cooperation in this field will help us combat the challenge of climate change. I also acknowledge the special significance that such an agreement has for Japan. I thank Prime Minister Abe, the Japanese government, and the Parliament for the support to this agreement.
Earlier, both Prime Ministers held wide-ranging talks on ways to enhance ties in a broad range of areas. Terrorism remained the main agenda of discussion.
As democracies, we support openness, transparency, and the rule of law. We are also united in our resolve to combat the menace of terrorism, especially cross-border terrorism.
Prime Minister Modi also called on Japanese Emperor Akihito to discuss the common bonds between India and Japan and also the future of Asia. Modi once again invited Japanese companies to invest in India, saying that substantial finances are needed for the country's development. He assured them that reforms are underway to make India the world's most open economy.
Creating an enabling environment for business and attracting investments remains my top priority. Stable, predictable, and transparent regulations are redefining the nature of doing business in India. E-governance is no longer just a fancy buzzword, but a basic facility.
The Prime Minister also referred to the progress on the GST regime, emphasizing that his government is pursuing a new direction of economic reforms. In line with the government's ease of doing business policy, India has already given visa on arrival facilities to all Japanese visitors and 10 years visa to Japanese businessmen. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and British Prime Minister Theresa May met in Delhi on Monday. Both sides took many key decisions on resolving issues relating to cooperation in different fields. The nations also set up a strategic group to work on problems relating to visa. On the defence front, Britain will establish manufacturing units in India with technology transfer in the future. They also decided to increase investment for mutual prosperity and employment.
British Prime Minister Theresa May on Monday met Prime Minister Narendra Modi for one-to-one and delegation-level talks on matters of bilateral importance. The emphasis was on improving business ties. May announced a special visa process for Indian businesses that is unique among any country in the world.
The UK will make India the first visa country to have access to our registered traveller scheme, offering many Indians smoother and swifter clearance at the border. And we have invited the Indian government to become the first government in the world to nominate top business executives for the Great Club, our bespoke visa and immigration service.
Two key agreements were signed to give a boost to business and cooperation in different fields, including defence. The agreements included facilitating ease of business in both countries for each other and on protecting intellectual property rights.
I also discussed defence and security partnership with Prime Minister May. I encourage British companies to look at the multiple opportunities in the Indian defence sector. Looking beyond trade in defence equipment, I invite them to build partnerships with Indian enterprise that focus on manufacturing, technology transfer, and co-development.
Both leaders discussed issues including terrorism and radicalization of youth in India. Britain promised to support India's concerns and also promised cooperation. Prime Minister Modi briefed May about cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan and the need to stop such tendencies wherever they existed.
I also discussed with Prime Minister May ways to purposefully work together to combat the growing forces of radicalization and terrorism. We agreed that it is not a limited security challenge. Its arc of threat spread across nations and regions. I conveyed our deep concerns to Prime Minister May regarding cross-border terrorism and the need for the international community to take strong action against states that support and sponsor terrorism.
We both face a shared threat of terrorism as individual countries, as partners, and as global powers whose interests lie in a stable world founded on the rules-based international system. Today, we have agreed to strengthen our cooperation, in particular by sharing best practice to tackle the use of the internet by violent extremists and to reduce radicalization and recruitment attempts online.
Both the Prime Ministers took part in the India-UK Tech Summit to boost cooperation. Britain expressed confidence in India's growth story and agreed to invest £120 million in a joint fund to leverage private sector investment from the City of London to finance Indian infrastructure. More than £1 billion of business deals were signed between the two countries. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now shift focus and bring you up to speed with all the sports news you might have missed this week in Sports Action.
Serbian Novak Djokovic congratulated his successor Andy Murray after the Scotsman dethroned him as the world #1 men's tennis player. Djokovic was removed from the #1 spot for the first time in 122 weeks. Murray claimed the top spot last Sunday on the 6th of November by winning his 8th title of the year at the Paris Masters. His elevation ensured he will be the top seed in the season-ending World Tour Finals in London. Rafael Nadal will return from a wrist injury to play an exhibition in late December in United Arab Emirates. The 14-time Grand Slam champion said Monday on his Facebook page he will compete in the six-player $250,000 Mubadala World Tennis Championship. The event is not connected to the ATP Tour and will be held in Abu Dhabi from December 29 to 31st. Top-ranked Andy Murray is also scheduled to play, as is 4th-ranked Milos Raonic. Nadal beat Raonic in the previous final. Jamaican Usain Bolt and Elaine Thompson both made the shortlist for the IAAF's World Athlete of the Year awards on Wednesday after cleaning up the sprint golds at the Rio Olympics. Ethiopian distance runner Almaz Ayana made the shortlist in recognition of her stunning 10,000 meters victory in Rio. The finalists were determined by the IAAF Council, the IAAF family and the public vote via social media. The winners will be announced in Monaco next month. Mercedes team principal Ross Brawn, in an interview, revealed that Michael Schumacher is making encouraging signs in his recovery from a serious skiing accident. 7-time world champion Schumacher sustained serious head injuries in the incident in 2013, which left him in a coma for 6 months and unable to walk. His current condition is not known, but Brawn, who worked with Schumacher on all 7 of his world titles, expressed hope the 47-year-old German will one day recover from his injuries. The head of Russia's Olympic Committee has called for the prompt reinstatement of the country's National Anti-Doping Agency and drug testing laboratory. The Russian agency and the Moscow lab were stripped of their accreditation by the World Anti-Doping Agency amid evidence of systematic doping. WADA assigned Britain's anti-doping agency to take over the testing of athletes in Russia. Russian Olympic Committee President Alexander Zhukov said the situation is totally unacceptable.
A Canadian singer, songwriter and poet Leonard Cohen died aged 82. The news was announced on his official Facebook page on Friday. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau led tributes to the singer, who was known for hits including Hallelujah and Dance Me to the End of Love. I'm going to leave you with a tribute to the legend.
I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled kid.